A millionaire has an accident with a pregnant beggar and recognizes her. She was his childhood love. But what he did left everyone in shock. Before we begin the story, leave a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. Nathan Mitchell was driving fast. The rain made visibility poor, but his mind was elsewhere. It had been a long, exhausting day, and all he wanted was to get home. His phone buzzed on the console. He glanced down for just a second. That second changed everything. Someone appeared in the middle of the road. Nathan slammed on the brakes. The car skidded on the wet asphalt. The impact was sharp, a sound he would never forget. His heart pounded. What had he done? With trembling hands, he opened the door and ran out into the heavy rain. A few feet away, a woman lay on the ground. Nathan rushed to her side. "Hey, are you okay?" Only a faint groan in response. He hesitated before brushing her wet hair away from her face. And then the world stopped. A shock ran through him like lightning. He knew her. "Sarah?" The name escaped in a shaky whisper. Her eyes fluttered, unfocused, struggling to recognize him. For a moment she seemed lost. But then something clicked. "And Nathan?" Her voice was weak, barely audible. Nathan felt his chest tighten. This couldn't be real. Sarah. The girl he secretly loved in college. The one always surrounded by the most popular guys. The one who never noticed him. The one he admired from afar, never daring to tell her how he felt. And now, here she was, lying on the asphalt, fragile, hurt, almost unrecognizable. Then, he noticed something. Her hand rested on her belly. A cold chill ran down his spine. Sarah was pregnant. His breathing became uneven. What had happened to her? How had she ended up like this? Panic rose like fire. "Sarah, stay with me." Her eyes fluttered, trying to stay open. I'm fine." But her voice was barely a whisper. Nathan took her hand, feeling how cold she was. "No, you're not. I'm getting you out of here." "No." She tried to protest but had no strength. Nathan didn't hesitate. He scooped her into his arms, a lump forming in his throat. She was too light, like someone who had gone hungry for too long, someone who had survived the impossible. Fear turned every second into a nightmare. He gently placed her in the passenger seat. "Stay with me, Sarah. Don't fall asleep." Her eyes blinked slowly. She was fighting to stay awake. Nathan sped through the streets, hearing only the pounding rain against the windshield and his own racing heartbeat. Nothing else mattered now except getting to the hospital in time. He had no idea what had happened to her, but he knew he would do anything to save her. What he didn't know was that the truth would change his life forever. Minutes later, he pulled up to the emergency entrance and jumped out. "I need help here." Nurses rushed over with a stretcher. Sarah tried to protest, but had no strength. Nathan watched as they lifted her onto the stretcher and wheeled her inside. He followed, but at the treatment room entrance, a nurse held up her hand to stop him. "Sir, you need to wait here. We'll examine her now." Frustration built inside him. He needed answers. "Is she going to be okay? And the baby?" The nurse kept a professional tone. "We'll do our best. First, we need to stabilize her." Nathan ran a hand through his rain-soaked hair, restless. He watched as the doors closed, and Sarah disappeared from sight. For the first time in years, he felt real fear. Nathan paced back and forth in the waiting room. Time dragged on, each minute feeling like an eternity. How had this happened? How had Sarah, the woman who once seemed to have everything, ended up like this? He tried to remember the last time he saw her. College. She was always surrounded by friends, living life to the fullest, never noticing him. He had loved her in silence, accepting his invisible role. Then one day, she disappeared. Nathan never knew why, and now, years later, she had reappeared like this, pregnant and vulnerable. The door opened, interrupting his thoughts. A middle-aged doctor approached. "Are you a relative of the patient?" Nathan hesitated. "I'm a friend." The doctor adjusted his glasses and glanced at his chart. "She's malnourished and very weak. Her blood pressure was low, but we managed to stabilize her." Nathan felt a weight on his chest. "And the baby?" The doctor sighed. "It's a high-risk pregnancy. If she doesn't get proper care, she might not carry to term." Nathan nodded, feeling the burden grow heavier. "Can I see her?" The doctor studied him for a moment before nodding. "Yes, but don't tire her out. She needs to rest." Nathan walked down the hall, his heart pounding. When he entered the room, he found Sarah lying down, pale, with her eyes closed. He approached slowly. "Sarah?" She opened her eyes slowly and fixed her gaze on him. You're still here." Her voice was weak. "Of course I am." Nathan watched Sarah, trying to decipher the storm hidden behind her eyes. She seemed so different from the young woman he had met years ago. Back then, Sarah was vibrant, full of plans, someone who never let life get her down. Now, before him, was a worn-out woman, exhausted and battered by life. He wanted to ask so many questions, to understand how she had reached this state. But there was a knot in his throat, a hesitation that stopped him from pressing her at that moment. "You need to rest, Sarah." He broke the silence. She forced a faint smile, but didn't seem convinced. "Thank you, Nathan. For everything." He simply nodded, not looking away from her. He stayed there for a few more minutes, watching as Sarah tried to keep her eyes open until fatigue finally won, and she fell asleep. Nathan leaned back in the chair and ran his hand over his face. He needed answers. He had to know what had happened to Sarah over the years. The next morning, he went to the hospital cafe to get a coffee. When he returned to the room, he found Sarah awake, gazing out the window with a distant look. "You look better." She turned slowly and smiled faintly. Apparently, a night without sleeping in the cold works miracles. Nathan approached and handed her the coffee. She took the cup with trembling hands, which didn't go unnoticed by him. "Sarah? What happened to you?" The question slipped out before he could stop himself. Sarah tensed, her fingers gripping the cup tightly. She looked away, clearly hesitant. "Nathan, I don't want to talk about it, but I want to know." His tone was firm. "Last night, I found you collapsed in the street, pregnant, weak, and alone. That didn't just happen out of nowhere. Please, tell me the truth." Sarah took a deep breath, her shoulders trembling slightly. Nathan realized she was struggling with herself, as if she didn't want to relive it. "You'll judge me," she murmured. "I'm not here for that." She sighed and, after a long silence, began to speak. "After we finished college, I kept dating Gustavo." Nathan felt a tightness in his chest at hearing that name. Gustavo had been the most popular guy at university. Handsome, wealthy, arrogant. The type of man who always got what he wanted. And for years, what he wanted was Sarah. "I thought we were building a life together. He told me he loved me and wanted a future with me. And I believed him." She let out a bitter laugh. "But when I found out I was pregnant, everything changed." Nathan stayed silent, allowing her to continue at her own pace. "I told him the same day I took the test. I thought he'd be happy, that we'd start making plans together. But instead, he said he wasn't ready to be a father. He asked me to fix it, as if the baby was an easy problem to solve." Nathan felt a wave of anger rise within him. Gustavo had always been a jerk, but he never imagined he'd be capable of something so cruel. "I refused. I said I wasn't going to get rid of my child and that I would raise the baby on my own if necessary. And do you know what he did?" She laughed, but her eyes were teary. "He broke up with me right there. Said I was ruining his life." Nathan clenched his fists. "That bastard." "I tried to move on, Nathan. I tried to be strong, but the worst was yet to come." She looked at him, as if seeking strength to continue. "My parents found out about the pregnancy a few weeks later. I thought they would support me, that they'd help. But," she paused, taking a deep breath before continuing, "they kicked me out of the house, said I had shamed them, that a single mother had no place in the family. My mother cried but did nothing to stop my father. They sent me away like I was worthless." Nathan felt a lump in his throat. He knew Sarah's parents were strict, but he never imagined they could be that cruel. "I left with nothing. I didn't know where to go. I stayed at a friend's place for a few nights until I managed to rent a tiny room." "And how did you end up on the street?" Sarah lowered her gaze, ashamed. "I tried to work. I did everything I could, but my pregnancy was high risk. I kept getting sick and fainting at work. No job would keep me. The bills piled up, and one day I was evicted. I had nowhere else to go. I ended up on the streets." She paused, swallowing hard. "At first, I tried asking for help. But no one cares about a pregnant woman with no money. I slept in shelters when I could. I went hungry, until I got used to it. I became invisible to the world." Nathan felt a tightness in his chest. He couldn't imagine what she had been through. "Sarah, I'm so sorry." She shook her head. "You don't have to feel sorry for me. I made my choices." Nathan took her hand, ignoring her initial resistance. "I don't feel sorry. I feel angry. Angry at everything they did to you, and guilty for not being there." Sarah looked up at him. "Nathan, it wasn't your fault. I never let you in." He didn't answer right away. It was true. He had always loved her, but she had always seen him as just a friend. "But I'm here now, and I won't let you be alone again." She looked at him for a long moment, as if processing his words. Then she gently squeezed his hand. "Thank you, Nathan." In that moment, he made a decision. No matter what happened, he would do everything to help her get back on her feet. The doctor walked into the room and looked at Nathan. "We have the test results. We need to talk." Nathan stood up immediately, feeling his chest tighten. He knew this was just the beginning. The silence in the room was broken by the sound of the doctor's pen scribbling notes on the chart. Nathan stood up at once, his heart beating faster than he wanted to admit. "What's wrong with her?" he asked, unable to hide the urgency in his voice. The doctor looked at Nathan for a moment before letting out a sigh. "Sarah's condition is serious. She is malnourished, showing signs of severe anemia, and her exhaustion levels are concerning. The pregnancy was already high risk, but now it's even more unstable." Nathan felt a knot form in his stomach. "And the baby?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The doctor met her gaze with a compassionate look. "The baby is fighting, but its condition depends directly on yours, Sarah. You need to gain weight, stay hydrated, and rest as much as possible. We'll keep you hospitalized for monitoring. If your condition doesn't improve, there could be complications during childbirth." Nathan nodded, determined. "Whatever she needs, I'll make sure she has it." The doctor gave him an approving look before leaving the room, leaving behind a heavy silence. Sarah let out a deep sigh and closed her eyes for a moment. "I still can't believe you're here after all this time." Nathan pulled his chair closer to the bed. "And I can't believe I found you like this." Sarah looked away, ashamed. "I didn't want anyone to see me like this, especially not you." Nathan frowned. "Why not?" She let out a dry laugh. "Because I remember who I used to be. I had dreams, ambitions. I thought I'd have a perfect life. And now, look at me. I failed, Nathan." Nathan felt a pain in his chest. "Sarah, you didn't fail. You were abandoned by the people who should have supported you. You were strong enough to survive all of this. If anyone failed, it was them." Sarah was silent for a long moment, taking in his words. "You've always had a way of seeing the best in people, haven't you?" Nathan gave a small smile. "Maybe only with you." She lowered her gaze, a faint blush creeping up her cheeks. Nathan studied her face, realizing that even after all the hardship, she still had that spark that had always fascinated him. He took a deep breath and made a decision. "From now on, you don't have to worry about anything. I'm going to take care of you." Sarah's eyes widened. "What?" "Nathan, you don't have to. But I want to, and I will." She shook her head, looking confused. "I don't want to be a burden in your life. You have your own routine, your business." Nathan gently interrupted her. "None of that matters now. What matters is that you're safe. I'll make sure you have everything you need." She remained silent, clearly moved. In the days that followed, Nathan kept his word. He arrived at the hospital every morning, bringing fresh fruit, new clothes, and small comforts to make Sarah's stay more bearable. He attended her checkups, listened carefully to the doctors, and even discussed which vitamins would help her recover faster. At first, Sarah tried to resist his care and attention, but she soon realized it was pointless. Nathan was stubborn, and more than anything, genuine. "You're spoiling me too much, you know that?" She joked one afternoon as Nathan peeled an apple for her. He raised an eyebrow. "And you're complaining about it?" She laughed. "No, but I'm surprised. The Nathan I knew was focused on business, ruthless in negotiations. I never imagined you would treat me this way." Nathan gave a faint smile. "The Nathan you knew was always this way. You just never wanted to see it." Sarah felt her heart race slightly, but looked away, unsure of what to say. Days went by, and Nathan's visits became her new routine. He would come before work and return to the hospital afterward, making sure Sarah never felt alone. Sometimes he stayed late, even spending the night sitting in the chair next to her bed. With each passing day, Sarah felt her heart softening more. She started looking forward to Nathan's visits. Her heart would beat a little faster every time the door opened and he walked in, bringing a smile or a small surprise like hidden chocolates or a magazine to distract her. She didn't want to admit it, but being near him was comforting. One night, after a long conversation about the past, Sarah sighed and looked at him with a mix of gratitude and regret. "I never imagined it would be you here one day." Nathan stared at her for a moment before responding. "And I never imagined you would accept my presence." She smiled, but her expression soon turned more serious. "Nathan, I regret a lot of things, but one of them was never giving you a chance." Nathan's heart skipped unexpectedly. "You don't need to think about that now, Sarah." She looked away, seeming thoughtful. "I know, but I needed to say it." Nathan stayed quiet. He didn't want to push her. But for the first time, he felt that maybe there was still hope. The next morning, when he arrived at the hospital, he found Sarah smiling in a way he hadn't seen in a long time. "What is it?" he asked curiously. The doctor said I'm getting better. If it continues like this, I can be discharged in a few days. Nathan felt a mix of joy and concern. That's great. But where will you go when you leave here? Sarah hesitated, and the light in her eyes dimmed slightly. I don't know yet. Nathan leaned in, holding her hand firmly. Then come with me. She widened her eyes. What? You don't have anywhere to go, but my house has plenty of space. I want you to stay there until you fully recover. Sarah opened her mouth to protest, but Nathan squeezed her hand gently. Please, let me help you. She stared at him for a long moment, then finally nodded. Okay, I'll accept. Nathan felt an inexplicable sense of relief. He knew this was just the first barrier Sarah had broken down, and he would be there to help her rebuild everything that had been destroyed. The next morning, Sarah woke up with a mix of relief and apprehension. After so many days in the hospital, she was finally being discharged. Her body was still weak, but compared to the state she had been in when she arrived, it was almost like she had been reborn. She looked around the room and felt a pang in her chest. That white bed and the sterile smell had already become part of her routine. But now came the hardest question. Where would she go? The answer came before she had time to process her own fears. Nathan entered the room with a cup of coffee and a discreet smile. Ready to get out of here? He asked, handing her the coffee. Sarah took the cup with trembling hands, blowing the steam before taking a small sip. Yes, but Nathan, are you sure about this? He sat down beside her and crossed his arms. Sarah, we already talked about this. You don't have anywhere to go right now, and I'm not letting you go back to the streets. Don't argue with me about it. She sighed, looking at the coffee in her hands. I just don't want to be a burden to you. Nathan chuckled softly, shaking his head. If I thought you were a burden, I wouldn't insist so much. The only thing I want is for you and your baby to be okay. So please, accept my help without guilt. Sarah looked at him for a long moment before nodding. All right, I accept. He smiled with satisfaction and stood up. Great. Let's get you out of here. Shortly after, a nurse entered the room to deliver the discharge papers. Sarah signed the documents with a mix of relief and anxiety. She was leaving the hospital but still didn't know exactly what to expect from the future. Nathan helped her get dressed and held her hand as she took her first steps out of the room. The walk to the exit was silent, and Sarah realized that, for the first time in a long time, she wouldn't have to worry about where she would sleep that night. As she stepped out of the hospital, the cool breeze against her face felt almost liberating. She took a deep breath, as if truly feeling the world for the first time in a long while. Come on, the car is just over here, Nathan said, carefully guiding her to the vehicle. He opened the door for her, and Sarah sat down, sinking into the soft upholstery. The last time she had been in a car, her destination had been cruel. Now, she had no idea what to expect. During the ride, Sarah kept her eyes fixed on the window. The city moved past her, people rushing along the sidewalks, busy shops, crowded restaurants. It was a stark contrast to the reality she had lived in for the past few months. What are you thinking about? Nathan asked, glancing at her briefly. How the world keeps turning, even when it feels like ours has stopped. Nathan tightened his grip on the steering wheel, and you'll start turning with it again, slowly, no rush. Sarah gave a faint smile but said nothing. A few minutes later, the car pulled up in front of an elegant building. Sarah's eyes widened. Nathan, do you live here? He chuckled. Yes, and now so do you. She swallowed hard, feeling out of place. I don't know if I belong somewhere like this. Nathan rolled his eyes, amused. Don't be ridiculous. Come on. He stepped out of the car, walked around to her side, and opened the door, offering his hand. Trust me. Sarah hesitated but took his hand and got out. As they walked through the stylish lobby, she felt curious glances from the staff. She instinctively shrank back, but Nathan gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. Inside the elevator, he entered a code on the panel, and the doors closed. The penthouse? Sarah asked, raising an eyebrow. Nathan smiled. What did you expect? She shook her head, unable to hold back a small smile. When the doors opened, Sarah caught her breath. The apartment was massive, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the city. The decor was sophisticated yet warm, with neutral tones and plush furniture. She hesitated at the entrance, feeling like she was stepping into unfamiliar territory. Noticing her hesitation, Nathan gently touched her shoulder. Come, I want to show you your room. He led her down a hallway to a spacious bedroom. The bed was large, covered in soft sheets, and a cozy armchair sat by the window. In the corner, a brand new crib was set up, with a small dresser beside it. Sarah stood frozen in the doorway, taking it all in. "You set this up for me?" Nathan gave a small smile. "Yes. I thought you might need a space of your own, for you and the baby." The tears came before she could stop them. "Nathan, I don't even know what to say." He stepped closer and took her hands. "Just say you'll stay here until you're back on your feet. No pressure, no worries." Sarah nodded, feeling safe for the first time in a long while. "Thank you." Nathan smiled and gave her hand a light squeeze before stepping back. "I'll let you rest. If you need anything, I'll be here." He left, closing the door softly behind him. Sarah looked around, taking in every detail of the room. She sat on the edge of the bed and took a deep breath. She had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel alone. Sarah woke to the soft glow of sunlight streaming through the large glass window. For a moment, she felt lost. The mattress was soft, the sheets clean and fragrant, and the room around her was a level of comfort she hadn't known in a long time. Then reality hit. She was in Nathan's home. She slowly sat up, still feeling weak. Running a hand over her belly, she sighed. The baby seemed fine, and she needed to stay strong for him. A gentle knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. "Can I come in?" Nathan's voice came from the other side. "Yes." The door opened, and he stepped inside, wearing a light blue dress shirt and black pants. He carried a breakfast tray in his hands. "I figured you might be hungry," he said, setting the tray down on the bedside table. Sarah blinked in surprise. "You brought me breakfast?" Nathan gave a small smile. "It's the least I can do." She looked at the tray. Fresh fruit, toast, juice, and a steaming cup of tea. It was simple, but she couldn't remember the last time someone had taken care of her like this. "Thank you, Nathan." Her voice was softer than she intended. He sat in the armchair near the window, watching as she took a sip of tea. "How are you feeling today?" Sarah thought for a moment. "Better. Still tired, but definitely better." Nathan nodded. "That's good. You need time to heal." She took a bite of toast and looked at him. "What about you? You must have a lot to deal with at work." "I don't want to mess up your routine," Nathan chuckled softly. "Believe me, Sarah, my routine can wait." She looked away. It still felt strange receiving so much attention from him. For years, she had ignored Nathan, choosing other men who, in the end, left her alone. And now, the only one still by her side was Nathan. "You don't have to do all this for me." Nathan frowned. "Sarah, I don't want you to think you're burdening me. I care about you. I always have." Her heart tightened. "I know." Silence filled the room, heavy with unspoken words. Nathan cleared his throat. "Now that you're feeling better, I thought maybe you'd like to step out of the room for a bit. Only if you want to." Sarah hesitated. Since she had arrived, she had only stayed in the room, feeling out of place in the luxurious apartment. "I think that would be nice." Nathan smiled. "Great. When you finish breakfast, I'll show you around the house." She nodded and finished her meal. When she stood up, Nathan helped her walk to the living room. The apartment was even bigger than she had imagined. The living room was spacious, with a large sofa and an amazing view of the city. There was a modern kitchen and an office filled with bookshelves. "It's beautiful, Nathan," Sarah said, impressed. He shrugged. "It's just a house. But if it makes you feel better, consider it yours too." She looked at him in surprise. "You talk like I'm going to stay here forever." Nathan shrugged again. "Maybe I want you to." Sarah felt her heart race. "Nathan," he held her gaze for a moment, then looked away. "Sorry, I don't want to pressure you. I just want you to know you have a safe place now." She nodded, feeling a whirlwind of emotions inside her. In the following days, Sarah adjusted to the new routine. She spent mornings resting and walked around the apartment in the afternoons to regain her strength. Nathan continued taking care of her, bringing her everything she needed. But something inside her felt restless. One night, while they were watching a movie in the living room, Sarah looked at Nathan and sighed. "Why are you doing this?" Nathan frowned. "Doing what?" "Taking care of me like this. You don't owe me anything." Nathan looked at her for a moment before replying. "I do it because I want to, because I care about you." Sarah looked away. "You shouldn't." Nathan leaned forward. "Why not?" She took a deep breath. "Because I'm not the same person you used to know. I'm not that girl with big dreams anymore." "I failed, Nathan." He shook his head. "Sarah, you didn't fail. You went through terrible things, but you're still here. That makes you a survivor, not a failure." Her eyes burned with the tears she was trying to hold back. "I'm scared." Nathan gently held her hand. "Of what?" She swallowed hard. "Of getting attached to you. Of depending on you and then losing you." "I've already lost everything before, Nathan." I couldn't bear to lose again. Nathan squeezed her hand lightly. You're not going to lose me. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. Sarah looked at him, searching for any sign of hesitation, but all she saw was sincerity in his eyes. She knew she wasn't ready to return his feelings. But for the first time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could trust again. Nathan smiled, and without letting go of her hand, turned back to the TV. In that moment, Sarah realized that something was changing inside her. Maybe love wasn't something to be feared. Maybe it was her second chance. Time passed quickly. Days turned into weeks, and before they knew it, Sarah was nearing the final stage of her pregnancy. Her body felt heavier, the baby moved constantly, and nights became longer due to discomfort. But despite all the challenges, it was the first time in months that Sarah felt safe. Nathan had been by her side the whole time. He took Sarah to medical appointments, prepared healthy meals, and even read books on pregnancy to help her. He seemed more anxious than she was. If I'd known you were going to become a maternity expert, I would have asked for your help sooner. Sarah joked one morning as Nathan prepared breakfast. He smiled, placing a bowl of fruit in front of her. I like being prepared. You never know when I'll need to step up. She raised an eyebrow. Step up? Nathan, do you think you're going to deliver the baby? He shrugged playfully. If it comes to that, I'm ready. Sarah laughed, but deep down, she felt grateful. Nathan had become a pillar in her life, and she didn't know how she would have made it this far without him. But what neither of them expected was that the moment would come sooner than anticipated. It was early morning when Sarah woke up with an intense pain in her stomach. She groaned, feeling a tightness unlike anything she had ever experienced before. She tried to turn in bed, but another wave of pain shot through her body. Nathan, she called, her voice weak. He, who was sleeping in the next room, appeared almost immediately. What is it? He asked, alarmed. Sarah held her belly, taking a deep breath. I think it's time. Nathan turned pale for a second but quickly pulled himself together. Okay, all right, take a deep breath. We're going to the hospital now. He quickly grabbed the bag that was already packed and helped Sarah get up. She held on to him, feeling another strong contraction. Nathan, it hurts so much. I know. I'm here. We're leaving now. He helped her to the car, driving as fast as he could without putting them at risk. The whole way, he held her hand, whispering words of comfort. When they arrived at the hospital, Sarah was rushed to the delivery room. Nathan tried to follow, but a nurse stopped him. Sir, she needs to be prepped first. We'll let you know as soon as you can go in. He nodded, but his heart tightened as he watched her disappear down the hallway. Nathan had never felt so helpless. Sitting in the waiting room, he ran his hands through his hair, trying to calm his nerves. He had closed million-dollar deals, faced extreme pressure, but nothing compared to this moment. Minutes felt like hours. Then a nurse appeared. Mr. Vasconcelos? He stood up immediately. Yes? How is she? Sarah is stable, but the delivery is more complicated than we expected. The baby is having trouble coming out, and the doctors are doing everything they can to avoid an emergency C-section. Nathan felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. Can I see her? The nurse hesitated. Normally it wouldn't be allowed, but she's calling for you. I'll take you to her. Without thinking twice, Nathan followed. As he entered the delivery room, his heart pounded. Sarah was sweating, breathing heavily, gripping the edge of the bed tightly. Nathan? Her voice was weak but relieved when she saw him. He rushed to her, taking her hand. I'm here. You're doing great. She closed her eyes for a moment, battling another contraction. I don't know if I can do this. Nathan squeezed her hand. You can, Sarah. You're the strongest woman I know. I'm right here with you. She looked at him, her eyes filled with tears, and nodded. The doctor glanced at them and smiled. The baby is almost here. Just one more push, Sarah. You can do this. Nathan never let go of her hand. And then, after what felt like an eternity, a loud cry filled the room. Sarah sobbed, exhausted, as the doctor lifted the tiny baby wrapped in a blanket. It's a girl, he announced. Nathan's heart tightened. He couldn't move, couldn't speak. He just stood there, staring at the little life before him, his chest overwhelmed by an emotion he had never felt before. Would you like to hold her? A nurse asked, bringing the baby toward him. Nathan swallowed hard. I? Can I? Sarah, still weak, smiled. Of course you can. With trembling hands, he took the tiny baby in his arms. She was so small, so delicate, and yet so perfect. The baby stirred slightly, and for a moment she opened her eyes. Nathan felt tears burn his own eyes. My God, she's beautiful. He looked at Sarah, who was watching him with an emotional smile. She has your eyes, Nathan laughed, feeling a deep happiness rise within him. She's incredible, Sarah. He leaned down and kissed the baby's forehead. In that moment, something inside him changed forever. He knew he would do anything for these two. Sarah reached out her hand and Nathan took it. The three of them connected in a way he had never imagined possible. "We did it," she whispered. Nathan nodded, smiling. "Yes, we did." And for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was exactly where he was meant to be. Sarah slowly woke up, her body still heavy and sore. The hospital room was quiet, except for the soft beeping of the monitors and the peaceful breathing of the baby beside her. She turned her head and saw Nathan sitting in the chair next to the crib, holding their tiny daughter in his arms. His gaze was full of pure adoration, as if he were trying to memorize every little detail of their newborn. "You didn't sleep?" Sarah asked, her voice still weak. Nathan looked up at her and smiled. "I slept a little, but I didn't want to miss a second with her. It's unbelievable how small she is." Sarah smiled, watching him gently cradle the baby. She looked so fragile, but at the same time so strong. Nathan looked down at the baby and gently ran his finger across her cheek. "She looks like her mother." Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. Since the birth, Nathan hadn't left her side. He was always there for her and the baby, caring for them with patience and kindness. "Have you thought of a name?" he asked, lifting his eyes to Sarah. She hesitated for a moment. "I've thought of a few, but I want something special. Something that means strength." Nathan smiled. "Do you have a favorite?" Sarah looked at her daughter and gently stroked her tiny fingers. "What if we call her Isabella?" Nathan repeated the name softly and nodded. "Isabella, it suits her." Sarah smiled. That afternoon, she was finally discharged from the hospital. Nathan took care of all the paperwork and made sure everything was set up for a smooth transition home. On the way back, Sarah held Isabella in her arms, feeling a mix of happiness and insecurity. "What are you thinking about?" Nathan asked, glancing at her briefly while driving. Sarah sighed. "What if I'm not good enough for her?" Nathan frowned. "What do you mean? What if I fail as a mother? What if I can't give Isabella everything she deserves?" Nathan parked in front of the building and firmly took her hand. "Sarah, you're the strongest person I know. Isabella is lucky to have you as her mom, and if you ever need help, I'm here. Always." Sarah felt tears welling up, but she simply nodded. When they got to the apartment, she was surprised to see everything so well prepared. The crib was set up, clothes neatly folded, and diapers organized. "Did you do all this?" she asked, her voice trembling. Nathan smiled. "Yes, I wanted to make sure you had everything you needed." Sarah looked around, taking it all in. The first days were challenging. Sarah was still recovering from childbirth, and as much as she loved Isabella, the sleepless nights and constant crying began to take a toll on her. One night, after hours of trying to calm her daughter without success, Sarah sat on the edge of the bed and silently began to cry. Nathan appeared in the doorway, his brow furrowing when he saw her like that. "Sarah, what's wrong?" She shook her head. "I'm just so tired, Nathan. I love my daughter, but I don't know if I can do this." Nathan walked over, took Isabella in his arms naturally, and began to rock her gently. "Go get some rest. I'll take care of her." Sarah hesitated. "But no arguments. You need to sleep." She looked at him for a few seconds before finally lying down. The last thing she saw before drifting off was Nathan pacing the room with Isabella in his arms, whispering softly to calm her. The next morning, when she woke up, the baby was sleeping peacefully in the crib, and Nathan was dozing in the chair beside it. "Did you stay up all night?" she asked, surprised. Nathan opened his eyes slowly and smiled. "She took a while to fall asleep, but we managed." Sarah felt her heart tighten. "Nathan, I don't know what I'd do without you." He took her hand. "And you'll never have to find out." The days passed, and the bond between Nathan and Isabella grew stronger. He was always present, helping Sarah in every possible way. He held the baby while working, rocked her to sleep, and made her smile like no one else could. Sarah began to watch this with a mix of gratitude and something deeper. One evening, after putting Isabella to bed, Nathan found Sarah on the balcony gazing at the city lights. "What are you doing out here alone?" he asked, leaning against the railing beside her. Sarah sighed. "Just thinking." "About what?" She turned to him and hesitated before asking, "What are we now, Nathan?" He was silent for a moment, as if processing the question. "What do you want us to be?" Sarah lowered her eyes. "I don't know. I'm just scared." Nathan took her hand. "Sarah, I never wanted to pressure you. But the truth is, I've always loved you, even when you didn't notice me." Her heart raced. "Nathan, I'm afraid I'll hurt you." Afraid I won't be able to give back what you feel. He smiled gently and cupped her face with tenderness. Then we'll go at your pace. I'm not going anywhere. Sarah felt tears fill her eyes. For the first time, she allowed herself to consider the possibility that maybe, just maybe, she deserved this happiness. Nathan wiped a tear from her cheek and pulled her into an embrace. There's nothing to be afraid of. We're in this together. She closed her eyes and let herself relax in his arms. Maybe it was time to stop fighting her own feelings. After all, Nathan was already part of her life in a way she could no longer deny. Time passed quickly. Isabella grew up healthy and full of energy, and every day with her was a new discovery for Sarah. But no matter how happy she was, something still weighed on her heart. It was a quiet afternoon when Nathan noticed that Sarah was more thoughtful than usual. Sitting on the couch with Isabella in her lap, she gazed at the baby with a distant look, as if her mind were far away. He sat down beside her. "Do you want to tell me what's on your mind?" Sarah sighed and gently stroked Isabella's fine hair. "I've been thinking about my parents, about how I never looked for them after I was kicked out of the house." Nathan remained silent for a moment before responding. "Do you miss them?" She hesitated before answering. "I do. Despite everything, they're my family. And now, with Isabella here, I don't know, I think I'd like her to meet her grandparents." Nathan held her hand gently. "Then we should try. If this is what you want, I'm with you." Sarah looked at him surprised. "Do you think they would want to see me after all this time?" Nathan smiled. "The only way to know is to try." Sarah took a deep breath. "I'm afraid, Nathan. Afraid of being rejected again." He squeezed her hand lightly. "And if that happens, I'll be right here. But what if it's different? What if they regret it? Don't you at least want to find out?" Sarah looked at Isabella again and nodded. "Yes, I want to try." The next day, Nathan helped her find her parents' address. The house where she grew up was still there, just as she remembered it. The same gate, the well-kept garden, the white curtains in the living room window. Sarah felt a lump in her throat as she stood in front of the door. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered. Nathan, holding Isabella in his arms, looked at her with understanding. "You've already come this far. This is the hardest step." Sarah took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. Her heart pounded as she heard footsteps on the other side. The door slowly opened, revealing her mother. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The shock on the woman's face quickly turned into a mix of relief and emotion. "Sarah?" Her voice was shaky, almost a whisper. Sarah swallowed hard. "Hi, Mom." Her mother's eyes filled with tears as she covered her mouth with her hand. "My God, my daughter." Before Sarah could say anything, her mother pulled her into a tight embrace. "I thought I would never see you again." She sobbed, holding Sarah tightly. Tears rolled down Sarah's face. "Mom, I missed you so much." Nathan watched in silence, holding Isabella carefully. Sarah's mother stepped back and looked at the baby in Nathan's arms. "Is she my granddaughter?" Sarah nodded and took Isabella in her arms, turning to her mother. "Yes, this is Isabella." The woman's eyes welled up again as she reached out to touch the baby's delicate face. "She's beautiful." Sarah smiled, feeling warmth in her heart. But then, a firm voice came from inside the house. "What's going on here?" Sarah froze at the sound of her father's voice. He stepped into the doorway, frowning when he saw her. His expression hardened as he recognized Nathan and the child in Sarah's arms. "So you came back," he said, his voice full of resentment. Sarah swallowed hard. "Dad, I just wanted—" He raised his hand, cutting her off. "If you came to ask for money, I'll tell you now, I have nothing to give you." Sarah felt a tightness in her chest. "I didn't come to ask for anything. I just wanted to see you, to introduce you to your granddaughter." Her father's eyes flickered toward Isabella for a brief moment, but his expression remained cold. "You made your choice years ago, Sarah. Now live with the consequences." Sarah's heart broke in that moment. Her mother tried to intervene. "Carlos, please," but he turned and went back inside without another word. Sarah felt a lump in her throat. Nathan stepped closer and put a hand on her shoulder. "Shall we go?" She nodded, forcing a smile at her mother. "Thank you for welcoming me, Mom. It was good to see you." The woman held her hand warmly. "I will always be here for you. Please come back." Sarah held back her tears and nodded. On the way back, the silence between her and Nathan was heavy. When they arrived at the apartment, Sarah placed Isabella in the crib and sighed deeply. "I was foolish to think he could forgive me." Nathan approached and held her face gently. "It wasn't foolish, it was brave. You tried, and your mother welcomed you with open arms. That means a lot." Sarah sighed. "But my father will never forgive me." Nathan gave her a soft smile. "Give him time. Some wounds take longer to heal." Sarah looked at him for a long moment before nodding. Maybe you're right. Nathan wrapped his arms around her and pulled her into a tight embrace. Everything's going to be okay. And for the first time in a long while, Sarah believed he might be right. The days went by, and Sarah tried to move forward despite the weight of her last conversation with her father. Returning to the house where she grew up stirred mixed emotions. On one hand, her heart filled with joy as she reunited with her mother and saw the genuine love she had for Isabella. But on the other, her father's coldness hurt her in ways she hadn't expected. She tried not to dwell on it, but the pain of rejection still lingered in her chest. Nathan noticed the change in her mood. In the nights following the visit, Sarah was quieter, more introspective. Even when she forced a smile to show she was fine, Nathan saw through it. One evening, after putting Isabella to bed, he found Sarah standing on the balcony, gazing at the city lights. She hugged herself as if seeking protection. "Thinking about your father?" Nathan asked, stepping closer. Sarah sighed and nodded. "I didn't want to care so much, but I do. Part of me still hoped he would accept me." Nathan leaned against the balcony railing, watching her. "You tried, Sarah. That's a big deal. It's not easy to take the first step, especially when you don't know how it'll be received. But your mom welcomed you with open arms. That's already a fresh start." She gave a faint smile, but her eyes remained distant. "I just wanted him to see that I'm more than the mistake he thinks I made." Nathan moved closer and took her hand. "You don't have to prove anything to him, Sarah. You're already an amazing woman and a wonderful mother. He's the one who needs to realize that. And maybe one day, he will." Sarah nodded and, without thinking, leaned against Nathan's chest. He wrapped his arms around her, and she closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of his embrace. "Thank you for everything." Nathan smiled against her hair. "Always." The following days were lighter. Sarah focused on her new routine with Isabella, and Nathan stayed by her side every step of the way. He helped with the baby, sharing the responsibilities as if he were her biological father. And in his heart, that's exactly how he felt. One afternoon, while Nathan was working in his office, Sarah walked in holding Isabella. "I hope I'm not interrupting." Nathan smiled and leaned forward. "You never interrupt." Sarah approached and sat in the chair across from his desk. "I've been thinking about going back to work. Now that I'm feeling better, I think I can ease back into it." Nathan frowned. "Are you sure you're ready? There's no need to rush." Sarah smiled. I want to rebuild my life. I want to be able to provide everything for Isabella." Nathan nodded, impressed by her determination. "Do you know where you'd like to work?" Sarah hesitated. "Not yet, but I'm open to opportunities." Nathan studied her for a moment before speaking. "Why don't you work with me?" Her eyes widened. "With you at your company?" "Yes. You're smart, dedicated. I'm sure you'd do great." Sarah seemed surprised. "I don't know. I don't want people to think I got the job just because you wanted to help me." Nathan smiled. "You wouldn't be getting the job because I want to help you. You'd get it because you're qualified. But if you'd rather find something on your own, I understand." Sarah bit her lip, thinking. "Actually, I'd love to work with you." Nathan smiled, pleased. "Then it's settled. We'll start with something light so you can balance it with Isabella." Sarah nodded, excited. For the first time, she felt like her life was getting back on track. In the following days, she started working a few hours at Nathan's office. The transition was easier than she expected, and she soon realized she enjoyed the work. Nathan made a point of tracking her progress, and whenever she felt uncertain, he was there to support her. But beyond work, something else was changing between them. Sarah began to notice how comfortable she felt around Nathan, how every moment with him felt right. More and more, she found herself thinking about him and missing his presence when he wasn't near. And it wasn't just gratitude, it was something more. One evening, after putting Isabella to bed, Nathan and Sarah stayed in the living room, watching a movie. She sat on the couch, and he was beside her, closer than usual. Without realizing it, Sarah leaned slightly toward him. Nathan noticed but said nothing, simply glancing at her from the corner of his eye. The movie continued, but Sarah was no longer paying attention. Her mind was filled with confused thoughts. And then, as if she couldn't hold back anymore, she turned to face him. Nathan noticed and met her gaze. The silence between them was filled with something intense, something that had been building for a long time. "Nathan," Sarah whispered. He didn't respond with words. He simply raised his hand and gently touched her face. Sarah felt a shiver run through her body. She didn't want to run anymore. And then, without hesitation, she leaned in and pressed her lips to his. The kiss started soft, hesitant, But within seconds, it deepened, full of emotions that had been held back. Nathan cupped her face in his hands, pulling her closer, as if he had been waiting for this his whole life. When they pulled apart, Sarah's eyes were shining. "I don't know why it took me so long to realize." Nathan smiled, caressing her cheek. "What matters is that you did." She let out a quiet laugh and rested her forehead against his. "It's a little scary." "Why?" Sarah sighed. "What if I mess everything up?" Nathan took her hands. "You won't. We're in this together." She looked into his eyes, and in that moment, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. That night, for the first time in a long while, Sarah slept with a light heart. She was finally ready to embrace love, and Nathan had always been there, waiting for her. The morning sun filtered softly through the bedroom curtains as Sarah opened her eyes. For a moment, she just lay there, soaking in the calm of a new day. The gentle sound of Isabella's breathing, sleeping peacefully in the crib beside her, was a quiet reminder of how much her life had changed in the past few months. She turned to the other side of the bed and saw Nathan still asleep on the couch in the room, just as he did every night. He insisted on staying there, just in case she needed help with Isabella. It was a small thing, but it meant the world to her. Sarah smiled and closed her eyes again. Since the kiss they had shared in the living room, something inside her had begun to change. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel without fear, without running away. But at the same time, doubt still lingered in her mind. She knew she loved Nathan. He had always been there, proving in every possible way that his love was real. But what if she wasn't enough for him? What if, one day, all of this just faded away? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of Isabella waking up, letting out small murmurs. Sarah got up and picked the baby up in her arms, rocking her gently. Nathan stirred at the movement and opened his eyes, smiling when he saw them. "Good morning." "Good morning." Sarah smiled back. He stretched and got up, walking over to them. "Let me take her. You must still be tired." Sarah handed Isabella to him and watched as Nathan spoke softly to the baby, making her flash a toothless grin. "She already adores you," Sarah said. Nathan smiled. "And I'm completely crazy about her." Sarah's eyes softened. "Nathan, thank you for everything." He frowned slightly. "Why are you thanking me?" "For being here. For never giving up on me, even when I tried to push you away so many times." Nathan looked at her for a moment before responding. "Giving up on you was never an option." Sarah felt her heart race. Later in the afternoon, the two of them sat in the living room while Isabella slept in her stroller nearby. Nathan was reading a work document, and Sarah took advantage of the quiet moment to watch him. He always seemed so confident, so sure of everything. "You look deep in thought," Nathan said, not looking away from his document. Sarah smiled. "I am." He glanced at her and closed the file, giving her his full attention. "About what?" She took a deep breath. "About us. About what we're building." Nathan stayed quiet, waiting for her to continue. "I've realized something, and I think I need to say it before it's too late." Nathan raised an eyebrow, but a small smile played at the corner of his lips. "I'm listening." Sarah leaned slightly toward him and said with certainty, "I love you." Nathan blinked a few times as if taking in her words. "What? I love you, Nathan?" Sarah repeated, feeling an overwhelming sense of peace as she said it out loud. Nathan's smile grew slowly, and Sarah noticed his eyes shining. "Sarah, you have no idea how long I've waited to hear that." She laughed softly. "I imagine it's been a while." He took her hand and intertwined their fingers. "So, does this mean I can finally do what I've been planning for weeks?" Sarah frowned slightly. "Planning what?" Nathan stood up, reached into his pocket, and knelt before her. Sarah's heart stopped for a second. Nathan opened a small velvet box, revealing a delicate ring with a sparkling diamond. "Sarah, I've loved you since we were young. Even when you pushed me away, I never stopped loving you. I want to be by your side forever. I want to be Isabella's father, if you'll let me. I want to build a family with you because deep down, we already are one. Will you marry me?" Tears filled Sarah's eyes before she could stop them. She glanced at Isabella, peacefully asleep, and then at the man kneeling in front of her. "Yes," she whispered. Nathan smiled. "Yes?" She nodded, laughing through her tears. "Yes, I'll marry you." Nathan slid the ring onto her finger and, before she could say anything else, pulled her into a passionate kiss. Sarah felt her heart burst with happiness. She never imagined life would take so many twists and turns. She never imagined that the man who had always stood by her side would be the one to give her the love she'd always longed for. But here she was, exactly where she was meant to be, in the arms of the man who loved her unconditionally. and whom she had finally learned to love in return. The morning sun streamed softly through the windows of Sarah's room, lighting up the space. She turned the ring on her finger, still getting used to the feeling of being engaged. Nathan's proposal echoed in her mind, and every time she thought about that moment, a smile crept onto her face. Let's play a little game for those who only read the comments. Type chocolate in the comments. Only those who make it this far will understand. Now, let's get back to the story. She never thought she would experience something like this. After everything she'd been through, being rejected by her parents and abandoned by someone who claimed to love her, life was now giving her a second chance. Nathan entered the room, carrying Isabella in his arms, and smiled when he saw Sarah sitting on the bed. "Good morning, future Mrs. Vasconcelos." Sarah laughed, feeling a warm glow in her chest. "That still sounds strange to hear." Nathan sat beside her and placed Isabella in her lap. "Are you happy?" She looked at the baby in her arms and then at Nathan. "Very. But something's still bothering me." Nathan tilted his head. "Your father?" Sarah sighed. "Yes. I know he made his choice when he threw me out, but part of me still wishes he could be at the wedding." Nathan held her hand. "If you want, we can try again. If he doesn't change his mind, at least you'll know you did everything you could." Sarah nodded. "I think I need to try." That afternoon, Nathan went with Sarah to her parents' house again. This time she felt less afraid. When her mother opened the door and saw her, her face lit up. "Sarah, I'm so glad you came back." Sarah smiled and hugged her mother. "We need to talk." She glanced inside and sighed when she saw her father sitting in the living room, reading a newspaper. Sarah's mother noticed her expression. "He's still stubborn, but he talks about you a lot. I know he misses you." Sarah took a deep breath and walked into the house. Nathan stayed outside with Isabella, giving her some privacy. "Hi, Dad." The man looked up and sighed. "What are you doing here?" Sarah stepped closer. "I'm getting married, and I'd like you to be there." Her father was silent for a long moment. "To that businessman?" Sarah nodded. "Yes. Nathan was the only person who never abandoned me. He took care of me and Isabella when no one else would." Her father scoffed, but Sarah saw a hint of hesitation. "He's not the child's father. Why would he marry you?" Sarah smiled softly. "Because he loves me, and I love him." The man tightened his grip on the newspaper. "I thought I was protecting you when I threw you out. I thought you'd learn to deal with the consequences of your actions. But maybe I was wrong." Sarah swallowed hard, waiting for him to continue. He finally lifted his eyes to her. "You want me at the wedding?" Sarah nodded, her heart racing. "Yes, Dad. I want you to be part of this moment." Her father took a deep breath, and for the first time in years, Sarah saw a softer expression on his face. "Then I'll be there." Sarah couldn't hold back her tears. She hugged her father tightly, feeling a huge weight lift from her chest. The wedding was set for a month later. Sarah wanted something simple, with only close friends and family, but Nathan insisted on making sure it was special. That morning, Sarah looked at herself in the mirror, dressed in white. The gown was simple but elegant, highlighting her natural beauty. She ran her fingers over the fabric and smiled. "Who would have thought I'd be here?" she murmured to herself. Her mother entered the room and smiled when she saw her. "You look beautiful, sweetheart." Sarah turned to her mother, her eyes filled with emotion. "Thank you for being here." "I've always been here, Sarah. Even when I couldn't see you, my heart was always with you." Sarah held back her tears and took her mother's hand. "I love you. I love you too, my daughter." When it was time for the ceremony, Sarah walked down the aisle holding Isabella in her arms. She wanted her daughter to be part of that special moment. Nathan stood at the altar, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, his eyes shining as he watched them. When Sarah finally stood in front of him, Nathan took her hand and whispered, "You look stunning." She smiled, feeling completely happy. The officiant began the ceremony, and when it was time for the vows, Nathan looked deeply into Sarah's eyes. "Sarah, I have loved you my whole life. Even when we were apart, my heart always belonged to you. You showed me the true meaning of love and gave me a family. I promise to stand by your side every day, in joy and in sorrow." Sarah felt tears running down her cheeks, but she smiled, holding his hand even tighter. "Nathan, I spent so much time running from love that I didn't realize it had always been right in front of me. You were my rock when everything fell apart. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. I promise to love you with all my heart, today and always." The officiant smiled. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife." Nathan didn't wait. He pulled Sarah into a passionate kiss as the guests applauded. Sarah pulled back just enough to whisper against his lips, "I have never been this happy." Nathan smiled, "And I will never let that change." The wedding ended with a simple but love-filled reception. Sarah danced with Nathan, laughed with friends, and finally felt like she had everything she had ever wanted. Later, when they were alone, Nathan cupped her face in his hands and said, "This is just the beginning, Sarah. We're going to build a beautiful life together." She smiled and rested her forehead against his. "I can't wait." And in that moment, she knew that everything she had been through was worth it. She had found true love, and, more importantly, she had found her own happiness. The morning after the wedding, soft sunlight filtered through the bedroom curtains. Sarah slowly opened her eyes, feeling a peace she hadn't known in years. The warmth of Nathan's body beside her was a silent reminder that, for the first time in a long time, she was no longer alone. She turned toward him and smiled, watching him sleep peacefully. Her husband. The words still felt surreal to her. Trying not to make a sound, Sarah got up and walked over to Isabella's crib, where her daughter was sleeping soundly. She gently touched her soft cheek, her heart filling with love. "You're up early." Nathan's voice was low and sleepy behind her. She turned to find him stretching in bed, his hair messy and his eyes still drowsy. "I wanted to enjoy this quiet moment before Isabella wakes up," Sarah whispered, returning to bed and sitting beside him. Nathan smiled and pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. "And how does it feel, Mrs. Vasconcelos?" Sarah chuckled softly. "Happy. Complete." Nathan cupped her face and kissed her gently. "I promise to do everything I can to keep it that way." The days after the wedding were filled with small joys. Now, as husband and wife, their daily routine hadn't changed drastically, but something felt different. It was as if a layer of uncertainty had lifted, making room for a new phase filled with possibilities. Sarah returned to work at Nathan's company, feeling more confident and useful again. She enjoyed what she did, and most of all, she enjoyed working alongside him. Nathan, in turn, was more attentive than ever. He made a point to be present in every moment, from taking care of Isabella to the little things in their daily lives. One afternoon, while they were at the office, Sarah looked at him and felt a sudden wave of emotion. "Have you noticed how much our lives have changed?" she asked, watching him review some contracts. Nathan smiled without looking up from the papers. "Completely. But to be honest, I wouldn't trade it for anything." Sarah crossed her arms and leaned against the desk. "Not even your freedom? Your life as a single, wealthy businessman?" Nathan set his pen down and looked straight at her. "My freedom? Sarah, I've never felt freer than I do now. Having you and Isabella in my life made me realize that everything else was empty." Sarah felt her cheeks flush, but a smile formed on her lips. "Are you sure about that?" Nathan got up and walked over to her, placing his hands on her waist. "Absolutely sure." They kissed, and Sarah knew she would never doubt his love again. A few months later, while planning a trip to visit Sarah's parents, who were now fully integrated into their lives, something unexpected happened. Sarah started feeling strange, more tired than usual, and constantly nauseous. At first, she thought it was just work stress and sleepless nights with Isabella, but as the days went by, the feeling didn't go away. Then a thought crossed her mind. That morning, while Nathan was having coffee in the kitchen, Sarah held a small pregnancy test in her hands. Her heart was racing. Taking a deep breath, she looked at the result, and tears filled her eyes. She was pregnant. Her heart raced with a mix of emotions. "Sarah, are you okay?" Nathan appeared at the door, frowning as he saw her so emotional. She looked up at him, still holding the test. "Nathan, I'm pregnant." For a moment he was silent, processing the news. Then his eyes lit up, and a huge smile spread across his face. "Oh my God, really?" Sarah nodded, and before she could say anything else, he pulled her into a tight embrace. "This is amazing," she laughed, feeling wrapped in his happiness. "I wasn't expecting this, but I'm so happy." Nathan cupped her face and kissed her gently. "We're going to have another baby. Isabella is going to have a brother or sister." Sarah smiled and placed her hand on her still flat belly. "Yes, our family is growing." The news brought a new wave of happiness to their home. Nathan started planning everything, from the baby's room to how they would balance life with another child. When they told Isabella, who was still too little to fully understand, she smiled and clapped her hands as if sharing her parents' joy. The months flew by, and soon it was time for the baby to be born. Nathan was more anxious than ever, holding Sarah's hand as she gave birth to their second child. When the baby's cry filled the room, Nathan felt tears running down his face. "It's a boy," the doctor announced. Sarah, exhausted but glowing, smiled as she saw the tiny baby in Nathan's arms. He's perfect. Nathan kissed her forehead, overwhelmed with emotion. You are amazing, my love. Sarah held the baby and felt her heart overflow with love. Welcome to our family, Miguel. Their lives felt complete. Years went by. And Sarah never stopped being grateful for how her life had turned out. Nathan remained the most dedicated man she had ever known, and their family became her greatest pride. Isabella and Miguel grew up surrounded by love, and Sarah's difficult past became just a distant memory. One evening, as they watched the children playing in the garden, Nathan held Sarah's hand and asked, "If you could go back in time and change anything, would you?" Sarah watched her children laughing and then looked at him. "No. Every pain, every challenge, it all brought me here. And here is exactly where I've always wanted to be." Nathan smiled and kissed her softly. "I love you, and I love you even more." And so, with true love, a happy family, and a bright future ahead, Sarah knew her story was not just one of struggle and overcoming. It was a story of rebirth, hope, and above all, love. What did you think of Sarah and Nathan's story? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Rate this story from 0 to 10, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to catch all our stories. Make sure to check out more heartwarming tales by clicking here on the end screen.